Welcome back to Talking Sports with Brandon. This is the NFL Week 16 recap video. Really, kind of a crazy week in terms of we actually got a coach fired from one of the teams this week. We got some new news about some quarterback situations in the NFL. Had some good games from the weekend. Crazy weather in a lot of these games that definitely changed how some of them were played and maybe the outcomes as well. And also, with only 2 games left in the season, we know just about where we stand with the playoffs in terms of who is, actually going to be out of the playoffs, which teams are fighting for which seeds, and then, which games matter in terms of Week 17 or the Week 18 games, which there seem to be a couple win or go home games that we'll mention in this one, but obviously that will be saved for the Week 18 video when those games are about to happen. And again, it should be a win or go home type of matchup in at least one, maybe two of those games, depending how this week plays out. But we're going to start with the 5 picks from last week. And first game I chose was Bengals Patriots. I had the Bengals -3 in this game. From the start of this game, it definitely looked like it was going to hit no matter what was going to happen the rest of that game. The Bengals jumped out to a 22-0 lead going into halftime. Patriots offense just nothing was happening. I mean, you look at that game, and again, a lot of these games were played on Saturday. That was basically this week. Saturday was Sunday. There was a couple games on Sunday, and then obviously the Monday night game. But so just about all these games did happen on Saturday. But it was just a drubbing, to be honest. The Bengals were moving the ball up and down the field. Patriots offense couldn't do anything. Running the ball, they had maybe in the first half like 20 yards, maybe. Throwing the ball, they had nothing going on. Just kind of more of the same that we've seen with them. And again, they're 7-8. Again, they lost this game obviously 22-18, so they did cover the 3 points, but they're 7-8. But it just goes back to what I said at the beginning of the season. This team, which rides on its defense, without a top, top 5, whatever the defense really is. In terms of scoring defense, they're definitely top 5 because they score a lot of touchdowns. They get a lot of points for their teams in a lot of these games. But without that defense, this offense is awful, terrible. And we've seen it these last couple weeks. And you want to say the play calling, you want to say kind of just the talent on the offensive side of the ball is kind of catching up to what they were producing earlier this season. I can understand that. But from the beginning of this season, I said the Patriots, I view them as one of the worst teams in the AFC. And I kind of feel like that's true in some ways, other ways not because of that defense. But the way that their offense plays, they definitely play like one of the worst teams in the AFC. I said the Jags would be better than them. The Jags are better than them. Despite the records, I guess, technically being the same, the Jaguars are a way better team than the Patriots are. And again, without this defense, right now a 7-8 team should at most be 5-10 in my opinion, at most. Because of the way their offense plays, the dysfunction that they have on their team, obviously the way that they've lost a couple of games, the way that they've even won a couple of games. The Jets game, obviously that was a punt return touchdown as time expired. They easily could have lost that game. So there's definitely a lot of situations where it could have been a lot different for this season in terms of the record, but this was another case of them coming back. They were down 22-0 in this game. Bengals looked, again, unstoppable for the first half. Interceptions hurt them in the second half. A fumble by Jamar Chase. A pick 6 happened. Again, that was the defense scoring again. But it gets them back in the game all the way to a chance. And even so much that it was 22-18 with, I believe, 2.5 minutes left, 3 minutes left in the game. Patriots have the ball. This is after Jamar Chase fumble. They have the ball on Cincy's side of the field. Get all the way down to the 5-yard line. 1st and goal after converting a 3rd and 1. 55 seconds left in the game. All you got to do is score a touchdown and the game's over. The Bengals didn't even have a timeout left. Even if, they did, they had to go down. And obviously with them getting 7 points, it'd be 25-22. So you'd have to at least get into field goal range. And again, weather was a big factor in these games. There had already been One missed extra point by McPherson and a missed field goal by him. He also missed another extra point, but there was a penalty on the play. So basically missed 2 extra points and a field goal. So were you really that confident in him in crazy weather, cold, windy? It was going to be tough to hit a long field goal in that environment. Nick Folk, the Patriots kicker, I think missed 2 field goals as well, or at least extra points or something. So it was just not a good kicking day. So if you do punch that in, you have a really, really good chance of winning that game. And on that 1st-and-goal play, Ramondre Stevenson, he gets tackled for a loss, but he fumbles on the play, and they lose the game. So the team that was dominating for the first half and majority of the game did end up winning, but just 2 weeks in a row where the Patriots, they were beating Las Vegas the week before, surrendered the lead, and then obviously have, they surrendered the lead, but it's still tied. You can go into OT, see what happens. They do the lateral for the pick six basically, and then this game, they fumble at the 5-yard line with a chance to take the lead with less than a minute left. So 2 just awful losses, terrible losses, gut-punching losses to your team. But like I said, this is kind of the team I expected them to be under 500, them not to have a really good record, not really be that good this season. It's just that their defense carried them up until this point. They still are carrying them. I mean, they are, but the offense, you can just tell, is lifeless, to be honest. And one of their touchdowns came on a Hail Mary. I mean, it was a Hail Mary from the 50-yard line, got batted down. Jacoby Myers was right there, caught it, got the touchdown. So a pick six and that were 2 of their touchdowns. It's pretty lucky, to be honest. But they did lose. I covered. That was the first win of the week. Second game, Saints-Browns. Again, another crazy weather. Super, super cold, windy, snowing as well. The Saints win 17-10. I had the Browns -3. Knowing this was the weather environment, I would assume that they would run the ball. And their defense, who had been playing pretty well, and I guess they only give up 17 points, so it's not that bad, but would do a really nice job against them. But on the ground, they only gave up not even 4 yards a carry, but it was still 150 on the ground. While the Browns on offense only had 124 on the ground, 3.5 yards per carry. I was just expecting the Browns with Chubb and Hunt. And even Watson, he can run. He actually had a rushing touchdown in this game. But I was expecting them just to pound the run, and that should work out. And again, you still have Watson, who can make throws. He actually threw it 31 times compared to Dalton, who threw it 15 times. So, again, they're losing, so it kind of makes sense. But I just expected them to ground and pound the entire game. And I guess they tried 34 runs in the game total, but they just couldn't really get anything going. The defense did a good enough job, but Watson also threw a pick, got sacked twice. I guess Dalton threw a pick as well, but didn't get sacked in this game. So it was kind of just 2 bad teams playing anyways. Even if this is good weather, it's still 2 pretty bad teams. But definitely disappointing for the Browns that they were to lose this game. I guess at this point you weren't going to make the playoffs anyways, so it's not the worst thing to lose games. At least get a higher pick, see what can happen with you. But I guess I think they traded their pick for Watson, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But still, it's just a tough loss. And again, the environment in almost every single place in the NFL this week was bad. It just seemed that in all the areas where there was bad weather, all those teams were playing at home. Even Buffalo, who went to Chicago, it was bad in either place, and of course they were playing each other. So it wouldn't have mattered where it was, if it was in Chicago or Buffalo. But that was the second game. Like I said, it was a loss. Third game, Chiefs-Seahawks. Again, another really cold one. Not as bad weather-wise as some other ones, but really cold. Didn't think Seattle would play great in an environment like this. Again, you're going against Kansas City in Kansas City, so it's going to be tough anyways. But I had the Chiefs -10. They went 24-10 in this game. It was kind of close. It was a little bit close for a little bit of this game in terms of the Seahawks were kind of moving the ball, but they just couldn't do anything. The score didn't reflect that, but the Seahawks were able to kind of move the ball a little bit, do something. They just couldn't score. They couldn't convert when they had to. The Chiefs eventually did get up to a 17-0 lead. But again, the score may seem like, it's just a clear blowout, but the Seahawks were kind of moving the ball a little bit. It just wasn't really doing much. And then in the second half, they were able to move the ball more. The first half wasn't as much. Second half was a little bit more, but turnover on downs. Those are pretty long drives for them. Interception, and then they get a touchdown basically to end the game. So they again, that second half, if you're able to convert some of those conversions, those fourth down conversions, you look a lot better. They were 2 of 14 on third down. Was the Seahawks? They had to go for it on fourth down 6 times, which just shows you what they were dealing with. So you go 2 and 14 on third down. No matter how much you're moving the ball, what you're possibly doing in terms of yardage, you're not going to win a game or even come close. So Chiefs didn't play an amazing game. They were only 3 of 11 on third down, but they did enough in what they had to. They capitalized off of those, I guess, turnovers, you could say, by the turnover on downs, and early in the game, kind of just getting an early lead and then staying ahead in the bad weather. So the Chiefs did enough. They cover, like I said, so go to 2-1. Lions, Panthers. This was a good matchup going into the week because Lions are a hot team. Panthers need the win because they're still fighting for the NFC South. And I took the Panthers +2, actually. Again, they're the home team. They were underdogs, which does make sense. Lions have been playing really well. But they blew the Lions out in this game. It was 37-23. They ran for, I think, 320 yards on the ground to the Panthers. They had 240 by halftime, I think it was. So they just destroyed them on the ground. Goff had a really good game. I mean, he was 355 yards, 3 touchdowns. But on the ground game for the Lions, they were 17 of 45. Couldn't get anything going. They also had a fumble. That was by Goff. But the Panthers, like I said, Darnold didn't have to do much. He still threw for 250 on only 15 completions, so that's pretty impressive. But it was 165 from Foreman and 125 from Hubbard. I mean, that's unstoppable. If your 2 lead backs are going for each over 100 yards, you're winning that game. There's just no way about it. So they destroyed them. I guess even 14 points almost seems a little less than what kind of the stats look like because they just absolutely destroyed them. But the Panthers, huge win for them. They go to 6-9. Lions. It was a big loss because of the other teams around them. The Seahawks lost, the Giants lost, and Washington lost. So all the teams that were around you, and obviously the Lions are trying to get into that last wild card spot, every other team lost. You already lost to Seattle, so that could have been a huge win to get over. I think they now have the same record. Washington, they already beat Washington. They already beat the Giants. So this was a huge opportunity for them to get a win. They couldn't get it. So now, again, they're 7-8, just like Washington 7-1. New York is 8-6-1. Again, that's the little buffer that they do have, is that they do have that extra win, and then Seattle is 7-8 as well. So huge opportunity for them to win. They couldn't. Again, they basically got blown out against the Panthers. That was a big win because Tampa actually did pull out the win against Arizona. Could have been even bigger for Carolina because Tampa definitely could have lost that game. Played like they wanted to lose that game, but now they go into a huge matchup in Week 17 to basically see who's going to win that division. It's basically going to come down to that game. Obviously there still is a Week 18. If Carolina does win, I believe that Tampa still can win Week 18, and then Carolina could lose, and Tampa could still win that division. But it's going to come down to this week. So when we do the preview video for Week 17, that's definitely going to be a game that we're going to highlight. We're going to talk about because that's a huge game for Week 17. But in terms of Week 16, that was the pick I made. Panthers, I liked it because they needed it. The Lions, they needed it, yeah, but they didn't need it as much. And again, Carolina's ground game can really work. The Lions' defense has been better as of late, and that's why they've, along with the offense, have been able to win a lot of these games. But it's still susceptible to different areas of other teams. The Panthers want to run it. They don't want to put the ball in Darnold's hands and have him win a game through the air. So get Foreman, get Hubbard on the ground. Good things will happen. They do have a good offensive line, so pretty decent. Good in terms of run game. So that was a good formula to win. And like I said, Carolina has a real chance to win this division. Does it really matter who wins that division in terms of what happens when they're in the playoffs? I guess anything can happen when you play one game in the playoffs, but Tampa and Carolina are still 2 really bad teams. It's not like they scare you at all. The only reason Tampa scares you a little bit is because of Tom Brady, just because there is any game where he's looked awful all season, and the whole team has, but you know that if there's 2 minutes left and it's a one-score game, you trust him to get down the field and get a touchdown, get that field goal and send it to OT, win the game. So if it's any type of close game against the Bucs, you got to be scared. Carolina, I don't think you fear Sam Darnold at all, but they do jump out to a lead. That's where they want to be. They want to have a lead. They want to run the ball. The defense is pretty decent for Carolina. They have players who can get sacks. They have some decent guys in the secondary as well. So you definitely don't want to be in a hole against Carolina, and that's going to be the biggest thing when they play Tampa. If Carolina jumps out to a lead, I think that game's over. I think Carolina, I don't think they blow them out, but they're winning that game, I think, no doubt. So that's the one thing for Tampa. If you go down early in that first quarter, 10-0, I think it's over. I don't see, Tampa being able to go on a 14-0 run and then maintain a lead for the rest of that game. I don't see it happening. But that was the fourth game. Fifth game and final game, Packers-Dolphins. This was the game on Sunday. I had the Dolphins -3.5. I couldn't have really felt better about that pick because the Dolphins were able to move the ball down the field. Now, the Packers were able to answer. They were able to counter a lot of those drives by the Dolphins, but Dolphins went into half up 20-13, and it came off a last-second field goal to end the half. So, it was a first half where they dominated. They had an 84-yard touchdown to Waddle. Tua had, I think, 200-plus yards passing in the first half. The run game was decent. They were moving the ball. Like, it wasn't like they couldn't move the ball. They were going up and down the field. Packers were getting kind of lucky. They had a big kickoff return for one of them. They had a couple big pass plays as well. So they were, they even got stymied at the goal line on the big kick return. They only got a field goal. They had to go for it on fourth down in the next drive after getting all the way down deep into the red zone to get a touchdown on that drive. You couldn't go back-to-back field goals after those type of drives. So they even turned it over on downs as well, which then led to another touchdown for the Dolphins. So turned it over on downs again for the Green Bay. So definitely could have been a different first half and different game. I guess the game, the Packers did win, so I guess it didn't matter. But I think the biggest news out of this game, and again, the Packers won 26-20. Obviously, my pick didn't work. I went 3-2 on the week. We moved to 36. I think we're 36-41-3 on the season. So again, it's a little bit better than it was, but still not great. 2 weeks left. Can we make up 5 games? It's possible, but it's going to be tough. We'll see what happens. But the biggest news, I would say, is that from this game, Tua is back in concussion protocol, and it was confirmed today that he does have a concussion. So, again, you heard what I said about the first half. 200 yards plus passing, looked great. I mean, looked comfortable, was making plays with his arm. Hit Tyreek Hill on a deep pass down the field as well. But late in the first half, when it was still 20-10 Dolphins, this is the play in question. It does look like to be the play where he did suffer the concussion. And we didn't know this at the time. We only knew it after the game, but not even after the game. It was just trending on social media that maybe he has a concussion. Someone found the play, posted it, says this is where it possibly could have happened. And then it was announced, a day or two later that he's in concussion protocol. And then as of when I'm recording this, it was announced earlier today that he does have a concussion. So at the time of the play, like I said, they're up 20-10. Looks great. Second half looks really bad. I think he was 7 of 13 for like 80 or 90 yards and 3 interceptions. And those 3 interceptions were super costly. I mean, again, even with the Packers coming back into that game, Dolphins couldn't do much. They still had a chance to win that game, multiple chances. Like I said, Packers come down, get a touchdown to start the half. Dolphins miss a field goal. That definitely was huge. Keeps it 20-20. Aaron Rodgers gets picked off. Then Tua gets picked off on the next play, leads to a Packers field goal, interception, field goal for the Packers, interception again when you need a touchdown drive with 2 minutes left in the game. So people at the time were just saying, Tua's 3 straight interceptions when you had chances to win this game. Big choke, obviously, with the Dolphins being 8-6 in this game. It's a huge game to win, with the Chargers also being 8-6 and having a chance. You're kind of fighting with them for a playoff, for seeding in the playoff. And now the Dolphins kind of have to worry about playoff. If they're going to make the playoffs, they should. But with Tua injured, now with the concussion, who knows? But yeah, as it was learned after, in the following days that he's concussion, definitely makes sense. I mean, you see the hit that he takes it's the same hit that he took against Buffalo and against Cincinnati. Again, he has a concussion, so he clearly did have one in that game, which still doesn't make sense why he's able to finish it, why he's able to keep playing in that game. He's not spotted for anything. So there's times where they take guys out for the smallest things possible. And then there's other times where you could see a guy wobbling around and he can't even get set. He doesn't know where he is, and they don't even stop the game. It's one of the players, in the Patriots-Cardinals game a couple weeks ago, the Patriots player has to stop the game to get the guy off the field. So nothing, he never came out the field to get looked at. Nothing ever happened. So who knows? Who knows if he even plays again this season? Again, there's only 2 games left. He's definitely not playing this week against New England. A huge game for them as well. It's going to be Teddy Bridgewater. But who knows if he plays again this season? I personally don't think he does. But I really can't answer that right now. I don't think he should. I know he's obviously going to want to, but I don't think he should. That's that's at least 2 concussions. I still think he got one against the Bills, but it's at least 2 confirmed concussions in the last 3 months. That happened like in October. So yeah, or kind of end of September, October that happened. So 3 months, I think 3 concussions. I think he's done for the season. You got to look to next season for them, in my opinion, but there's something wrong with the way that we're going about this situation if he finished that second half with a concussion, and he was never looked at, never spotted, never checked up on. So that was one of the biggest news from the weekend. There's a lot of big news, like I said at the beginning of this episode, but that was definitely one of them that was fully confirmed today. The other big news was the Broncos. Broncos get destroyed by the Rams, 51-14. They lose. This was the premier case and example of a team that packed it in, and I guess it's not surprising that the next day, or I guess maybe on Tuesday, whatever day it was, their head coach got fired. So Nathaniel Hackett is gone. We knew it was going to happen, whether it was in season or right after the season ended. But I think by this performance, you could tell their defense one of the best in the league, and they packed it in. The offense, which has obviously been really bad all season, was awful. Again, there's fighting on the sidelines between backup quarterbacks and offensive linemen trying to protect or trying to support Russell Wilson, and you could tell it was just dysfunctional environment in the locker room. And the team, that he lost the faith of the players. Russell Wilson probably has as well, but you just paid him the big contract. You traded for him. You can't just get rid of him. So, at least not yet. We'll see what happens next season. But Hackett's gone. It seemed like a hire that made sense if they were going to get Aaron Rodgers, which they probably thought that they were in last offseason, where Hackett's his QB coach. He loves Hackett as a QB coach. Obviously, rumors were swirling that he wants out. He's going to leave. He's going to go to Denver. Where's he going to go? They hire Hackett, presumably thinking that they're going to be able to get Rodgers. He obviously signs with Green Bay instead. They get Wilson. So maybe Hackett, if they really could do it again, obviously they would choose someone else, but, would they even look at Hackett as being a real potential candidate? Dan Quinn was big with them. Seems like he could be going there maybe next season. So who knows what happens, but yeah, I mean, if you watch that game, you knew that team gave up on him, and it's no surprise. I mean, if this game was close and they were fighting, maybe he'd finish out the rest of the season, but after a performance like this, I mean, the Rams, they're not a good team, obviously. Baker Mayfield starting. He's looked pretty good, but they're not a good team. They're missing 1,000 guys. They're dead of confidence as well. And you get 51 points against you. It's an embarrassing effort. And like I said, it's no surprise he got fired, the day after that game happened. So that was the first coach gone. We expected it anyways. We'll see who follows. Behind them. I guess not the first coach gone. I guess Matt Rule was fired, but it's the Hackett is now gone for the Denver Broncos. So we'll see what happens with him. Other big QB news from today, actually, and this relates back to the Sunday night game, which was Steelers-Raiders. Derek Carr is not even benched for the rest of the season. He's inactive the rest of the season. So the Raiders lost 13-10. Another bad loss. I mean, you're playing the Steelers. You are on the road, but you're playing the Steelers. They it's bad weather again. Not terrible, but bad. But Derek Carr, he threw 3 interceptions. with the talent on that team, with Waller and Renfro now back, with Adams and Jacobs, there's no reason for this team to score 10 points. You know, they didn't really seem to want Carr last year. But it leads them to the playoffs. At least does some things. They lose to the Bengals in that game, but they get Adams. Obviously, they're college teammates. That's probably a reason why he did want to come as well. Also, they were willing to give him the contract, but now with him being not even benched but inactive for the rest of the season, I don't see him coming back next season. I mean, how can you? I know they're out of the playoffs, and that's why you may want to, whether you want to trade him or whatever you want to do with him, you want him to get injured and possibly risk anything for the future. But I mean, I don't see how he returns next season. I don't think McDaniels really likes him that much. Personally, what I see is Tom Brady going there next year. I think he will. Again, it makes sense with McDaniels. Obviously, Brady's OC in New England for all of those years, had a great relationship. Obviously, Brady's going to be done with Tampa Bay after this season when his contract's over. Even if they were having a good season, I think he'd still be done. But obviously, with the terrible season that they are having, despite being in a playoff spot right now, he's going to leave there. Is it Miami, which is still definitely a possibility because Tua, now we don't know because he looked great early, but then the concussion things are happening. It's not looking great. So who knows if he does stay there. But is it Miami? Is it San Francisco possibly? Lance won't be ready for next season. So do you go with the 1 year Brady or whatever you do, or to Las Vegas? Personally, I think Vegas. I'm assuming they'll bring Jacobs back. You still have Adams. You have Waller, Renfro. You'd have Brady in there now with your offensive line. People would want to come play for you. It's not a terrible offensive line. Definitely has some holes in it, but people would want to go play for you, and you could definitely make things happen. Defense definitely needs some improvement, but again, veterans will want to come to you. You can maybe snatch a couple guys away, have a good draft as well. That definitely helps. So I see that as the landing spot for him. I think it makes sense. It definitely makes sense, but I think that's where he's going to go. I think Carr's going to go somewhere else. Is it the Jets? Is it some other team? Who knows? But I think Carr is gone. I think Brady's in for next season. And you know what? If you give Brady enough time in the pocket, he's going to make plays. The reason why the Tampa is now successful, maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes, but their offensive line's getting killed on a weekly basis. He's got no time in the pocket, and even when he does, it's not looking great right now. I think his confidence is just shot. I think he just doesn't, he just can't uplift this team like he normally does, and also the lack of a run game kills them. They're one of the worst rushing attacks in the league. The Raiders, that's not a problem with Jacobs. You have a star wide receiver. Even though he's Evans and Godwin, Adams is an elite wide receiver. That makes a big difference. He's never had an elite wide receiver in, basically since Randy Moss. For like 15 years, he's never had an elite receiver like that. So I think it's a match made in heaven, to be honest. And that's where I think he goes. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens the rest of the way in the next couple months. But I definitely see him going there. If not, it's Miami or San Francisco. Those are the only other possible situations he would go to. But like I said, I think it's Vegas. Other stuff around the league. We'll talk about some other games from the week. So Bills beat the Bears 35-13. Again, bad weather again, but this was expected. The Bills still haven't looked amazing, to be honest. They still, really haven't hit their stride yet, but they're still the number one seed in the AFC. As long as they win their last two games, they'll be the number one seed, unless Kansas City does lose one of these last two games. But it looks like Buffalo's going to be the one seed. Road to the Super Bowl through the AFC goes through Buffalo. You're going to have to deal with weather at some point. That's going to be a big factor in there. We talked about Saints-Browns, Chiefs-Seahawks we talked about, Vikings-Giants. I said the Giants had lost. They lose on a game-winning field goal to the Vikings 27-24. Again, another huge win from Minnesota because San Francisco destroyed Washington. If Minnesota did lose this game, you're kind of just waiting for them to lose the grasp of that 2 seed. But if they just keep pulling out these victories, they're going to be the 2 seed, which for San Francisco doesn't matter. They can obviously travel, but, they're definitely the better team than Minnesota. If they do match up, which they most likely will in the playoffs, I'm picking San Francisco in that game. They're just the way better team. But Minnesota plays Green Bay and they play Chicago. It's definitely two easier games, but with Minnesota, it's going to be a one-score game. It's going to come down to the final 4 or 5 minutes of that game anyways. So Giants, like I said, they needed the win. They didn't need that win because they do have 8 wins compared to the people below them having 7. But it would have been nice to have, because then it gives you an even more of a gap between the 7th seed, or who knows, maybe even missing the playoffs. So definitely not a costly loss, but definitely hurt a little bit for them. We talked Bengals, Patriots, Lions, Panthers, Falcons, Ravens. This was pretty much a nothing game. Lamar Jackson still hasn't played yet. It was Tyler Huntley in this one, but Ravens won 17-9. I mean, again, Ravens, they're 10-5. They're going to make the playoffs. They're most likely going to be the 5 seed. Who knows? Maybe that 6 seed with the Chargers now coming up. But whatever seed the Ravens are, they're going to lose in the first round. Whether they play Cincinnati or they play the winner of the AFC South. I guess they could beat that if it's the Jaguars or Titans. But even then, I don't know how much I trust them to win that game. But for sure, if they play Cincinnati, they're going to lose in the first round. But they are 10-5. Texans, Titans. Texans beat the Titans in this one. Titans, they were 7-3. They're now 7-8. Awful loss with the Jaguars winning earlier in the week on Thursday Night Football. They're now tied, and the Jaguars actually are technically ahead because they beat them head to head. But this all comes down to a Week 18 matchup. So it doesn't matter what happens in Week 17 with either of these teams. They could both lose, they could both win. One could lose, one could win. It doesn't matter. All that matters is week 18, and that's the winner-go-home game for Week 18. There could be one more, who knows, but that's at least the one that we know of right now. So the Titans are on a short week playing Dallas. You would expect that maybe some guys rest. Derrick Henry is already on the injury report. He'll most likely not play that game. They haven't announced anything yet, but it'd be very surprising if he played that game. Even if you play him limited snaps, what's the point? You might as well just rest him if you're going to play him limited snaps. So we'll see a rest for them. Because again, they could lose this game. Jaguars could win next game. It doesn't matter. Because Tennessee, if they were to beat Jacksonville in Week 18, would have the better division record, which is the ultimate tiebreaker if both teams have the same record and split the season series. And they would make the playoffs as the AFC South winner. So no matter what happens this week, it doesn't matter. All that matters is Week 18. So we'll see what game plan they go for. Even the Jaguars as well, they could maybe, I would assume they're playing the Texans. I would assume that they would still play their guys, but who knows? Maybe if they are up early, they definitely take them out, or if they're, maybe they only play them a half. I don't know what's going to happen, but definitely look for those two teams not to, I wouldn't say care about Week 17, but definitely not put as much effort into it as they would for the following week. But still a terrible loss. I mean, that's a game you got to win. You're playing the Texans at home. You win that game, you don't even got to worry about a Week 18 win or go home situation. Now, if you were to lose Week 17, then yeah, but at least you'd have that win. You'd be 8-7. Jacksonville would be 7-8. You'd still have the 1-game advantage over them. Now that's over with. So a really bad loss anyways. And now with Malik Willis starting the rest of the season, it's going to be tough anyways. But Niners, Commanders, I said they destroyed them 37-20. Steelers, Raiders, like we said, Steelers win 13-10. We talked about Packers, Dolphins, Rams, Broncos, Bucks, Cardinals. They win in OT 19-16 to the Bucks. Again, they win, but it's one of the ugliest wins you'll ever see. Definitely can't be impressed or feel good after a win like that. And then Chargers beat the Colts 20-3. Again, Ravens are 10-5, Chargers are 9-6. So that's where the 5-seed battle is between them and the Ravens. If the Ravens do, I'm not exactly sure the tiebreaker for them if they do end up with the same record because they haven't played each other this season. But I guess it would go to. They're not in the same. I guess it would go to conference record. I think it would go to. So whatever that tiebreaker is, we'll see what it is. But definitely, if that does work out in the Chargers' favor, Chargers are way more scary than the Ravens are. No doubt about it. So if you're the Chargers right now, you're playing Cincinnati. That's a matchup you want to avoid as much as possible. You want to get to that 5 seed. You play the Jaguars or the Titans. Not saying that's a guaranteed win, but it's a way more likely win than it is if you were to play Cincinnati. So definitely the Chargers' main goal is now just to get that 5 seed, and it's possible. The Ravens, with the way that they play and how they barely squeak by people, you could definitely win that game. Ravens play the Steelers and the Bengals these last 2 weeks. Maybe the Bengals pack it in for that last game because maybe they can't get to the 2 seed, maybe they can't advance. Again, they're 11-4. Kansas City's 12-3. Buffalo's 12-3. So they might be able to get to that 2 seed if Kansas City loses, because they did beat Kansas City. They do have one less win than them right now, but that's the only way it would work out. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it still would mean something for them that game, but we'll have to find out. But yes, watch out for that 5 seed in the AFC. And then the last game was Eagles-Cowboys. Cowboys win 40-34. I will talk about this game on the next video that you'll see, which will be, or maybe that's the next video. I think because the Cowboys are playing on a short week, I think I'm just going to combine the 2 games into one. Talk about both of them, the Cowboys or the Eagles and Titans games for the Cowboys. So that rather is coming out after the Titans game or next week, we'll talk about both of them. So definitely watch out for that. But yes, that is it for this video. I thank you for watching. I want you to check out the next video. Again, it's either going to be the Cowboys one or it's going to be the Week 17 preview video. Either way, you should check both of them out, or whichever one comes out next. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.